Here's a quick video explaining some things you might want to know about shooting on a Sony camera with a Tomos external recorder. I feel a lot of this information isn't readily available or common knowledge to a lot of shooters. These are some things that you should be aware of. First of all, when shooting with a Sony camera, from my experience, it's been all walks of cameras, all Sony Alpha cameras, the FS7, if I'm not mistaken, the FS5. When using S-Log through the HDMI out, it gets broken. It's not S-Log. If I'm not mistaken, Dave Dugdale pointed this out. The signal that gets recorded through the external recorder is much contrastier when compared to the internal. It's a little bit grainier, the colors are a little bit more saturated, and there wasn't an official fix. Tomos never had an official statement. Sony never had an official statement. Well, what's going on there is the signal coming out is supposed to be read as a full signal, 0255, and recorded as such, but for some reason, S-Log coming out of the HDMI is recorded as a limited signal, 16235, so it becomes contrasty and a little bit saturated. There was a solution that people were doing where they were trying to manipulate the signal in post using a little bit of a number tweak here and there, and they would change the saturation trying to make it look the same, but it wasn't the same. It looked much different than actual S-Log, so if you're comparing it to another camera, it wouldn't look right. But Cinema 5D released a LUT fix that you can either load onto your recorder and bake in or apply in post. It fixes the signal and makes it back to S-Log, so that you can buy that for $4. I highly recommend that. That gives you true S-Log to your recorder. If you're not using that LUT, either baking it in or putting it in post, you're not getting S-Log. If you don't shoot S-Log, you don't need it. It only affects S-Log. But if you want S-Log, you're shooting S-Log, you need that. Now, another thing is you never hit record on the monitor. Never hit record on a monitor. Don't do it. If I'm not mistaken, Dave Dugdale noticed this. He coined it skin smoothing. If you don't hit record on the body, the camera doesn't output the high quality signal to the recorder. So it's recording a lower quality signal that kind of smooths fine details. And again, that's if you decide to hit record on the monitor, you're recording a non-optimal signal coming out of the camera. If you hit record on the body, it outputs the optimal signal, and then that gets recorded. You're going to want to go into the menu and enable record control. You're going to want to go to your recorder, enable HDMI trigger, and then you just hit record on the body. It'll trigger on your recorder, all of them. That will give you the signal you're looking for. That will give you high quality recordings. Again, if you hit record on the monitor, you're getting a less than ideal signal. You're not getting what you're supposed to get. Another quick thing is there is a bug with the ISO on these cameras. If I'm not mistaken, it affects all Sony Alpha cameras. It affects all picture profiles. It's not limited to the A7S Mark II, S-Log 3 like some people think. It is affecting all cameras. It's a little tricky to explain in a short sentence. I have a video explaining it more in depth, but in this case, for instance, I have an A7S Mark I. I am in S-Log 2. If I go to ISO 8000, it will give me two totally different results if I go up to it versus go down to it. So in this case, if I go down to 6400 and back up to 8000, it looks the same, but if I go up to 10,000, you can see the shadows totally change, the grain totally changes. Go back to 8000. It looks totally different. 6400, 8000, 10,000, 8000. So there's a bug. I don't think Sony fully understands what's going on. I don't think the Sony community fully understands what's going on. I don't fully understand what's going on, but I did notice that it affects all Sony Alpha cameras. It affects all picture profiles. Each one has a different trick ISO. It's not going to be 8000 on all of them, and it's going to be different on different cameras because they all have different natives. In this case, for instance, 8000 going up to it will give you a grainier image versus going down to it gives you a cleaner image. It does something to the blacks. It changes the grain structure. It clips the blacks at a certain point. I'm not fully sure what's going on there, but that's something to keep in mind when shooting. Anybody could accidentally trigger this. Say you're shooting and you bump it up to 8000. If you go up to it, you're getting a much grainier image. If you go down to it, it gives you a cleaner image, but it clips the blacks. So maybe it's an ISO you avoid. So those are some things to keep in mind when using a Sony camera with a Shogun external recorder.